What if I told you that Suddenly Amish on TLC is about 60% scripted, but the 10 things it showed about Amish women are 100% real, and most people watching the drama never stopped to notice what was actually true? 60% scripted. Let's be honest about Suddenly Amish before we discuss what it got right. The show was produced by Hot Snakes Media, the same company behind Amish Mafia. Experts who study Amish communities have noted scripted scenes and cast members with prior Amish connections the show never disclosed. James and Emma, presented as outsiders, were actually ex-Amish. But here is the thing about scripted reality shows set inside real communities. Even when the drama is manufactured, the backdrop is real. Every time the cameras caught an actual Amish woman doing an actual thing, it was accurate. 10 times. Suddenly, Amish got Amish women exactly right. Before sunrise. Number 1. When the show depicted its cast members being dragged out of bed before sunrise to start chores, every viewer groaned for them. What the show did not fully explain is that this is not a hardship imposed on newcomers to make good television. It is simply Tuesday for an Amish woman. Every Amish woman. Sarah, the Amish mentor on Suddenly Amish, was already well into her morning by the time the cameras were rolling. The fires are started, the animals are fed, the bread dough may already be rising before the sun clears the horizon. Amish women in Lancaster County, where Suddenly Amish was filmed, typically begin their day between 4 and 5 in the morning, not because they are told to, because the work requires it, and the work does not wait for anyone to feel ready. No mirrors. Number 2. In episode 3, Suddenly Amish suggested the Amish are not allowed to have mirrors in their homes. That specific claim is false, and researchers have pushed back on it directly. Most Amish homes do have mirrors for practical purposes, but what the show stumbled onto that is true is the deeper principle behind the claim. Amish women are expected to minimize time spent on physical appearance, not because mirrors are forbidden, but because vanity is. A woman who spends significant time studying her own reflection is, in the Amish understanding, prioritizing the self over the community and over God. The practical result, whether or not a mirror is physically present, is a woman who dresses quickly, plainly, and without the daily ritual of self-examination that most modern women consider completely normal. The show got the rule wrong. The reality behind the rule is accurate. Modest by force. Number 3. Suddenly, Amish showed its female cast members being required to change their clothing immediately upon arrival, swapping out everything modern for plain dresses, head coverings, and the kind of full coverage that made Kendra, a former dancer from California, visibly uncomfortable. The show treated this as a dramatic culture clash moment. What it actually showed, accurately, is that for Amish women, modest dress is not a personal style choice. It is a requirement enforced by the community and ultimately by the bishop, whose authority over what members wear is absolute within his district. An Amish woman who dresses outside the Ordnung's guidelines does not just receive a comment, she receives a visit. The requirement covers color, fabric, neckline, sleeve length, hem length, and the specific style of head covering appropriate to her marital status. Kendra's discomfort watching her own clothing disappear into a box was a genuine window into what Amish women accept as simply the daily uniform of belonging. Quiet authority. Number 4. One of the things Suddenly Amish captured most accurately, without ever naming it directly, was the quiet authority that Amish women hold inside their households. Sarah, the Amish mentor, never raised her voice. She never argued with Alan on camera. She never issued commands the way a modern authority figure might. And yet it was obvious, to anyone watching closely, that the household functioned on her decisions. What the show accidentally documented is a reality that surprises most outsiders. Amish women run the interior of Amish life with an authority that is real, recognized, and respected within the community. Even though it rarely looks like authority from the outside, an Amish husband makes decisions in consultation with his wife far more than the community's public gender roles suggest. Sarah's calm, steady presence throughout. Suddenly, Amish was not a performance. It was the most accurate thing the show filmed. She told people what needed doing, and it got done. That is Amish authority. It does not announce itself. It simply functions. The kitchen world. Number 5. Suddenly, Amish spent significant time in the kitchen, and rightly so. For an Amish woman, the kitchen is not a room in the house. It is the center of everything. 3 meals a day for a large family, cooked entirely from scratch, without the shortcuts modern kitchens rely on. No microwave, no food processor running on electricity. In many Lancaster County homes, no gas stove either, meaning meals are cooked on wood-burning stoves that must be started, managed, and kept at a consistent temperature entirely by feel and experience. What the show depicted, outsiders struggling to keep up in a kitchen that an Amish woman manages without effort or visible stress, was completely accurate. The gap between what an Amish woman can produce in a kitchen and what a modern woman can produce is not about talent. It is about years of daily practice, starting from the age most English girls are watching television after school, building a competence so deep it becomes invisible to the woman who carries it. The kitchen is also where she teaches her daughters, disciplines her children, and has nearly every serious conversation she will have in a given week. It is her office, her classroom, and her domain simultaneously. What makeup costs? Number 6. Kendra's storyline on Suddenly Amish centered heavily on her struggle to give up makeup and the identity she had built around her physical appearance as a former dancer and content creator. The show treated this as Kendra's personal drama. What it actually illustrated, more accurately than it probably intended to, is the real psychological cost of the Amish requirement that women go without cosmetics entirely. For a woman raised inside the Amish faith, this cost is absorbed in childhood and never fully felt as a loss because the standard was never different. But for every woman who joins the community from outside, and for every Amish woman who has ever spent time around the outside world, the requirement asks for something that modern culture attaches enormous value to: the ability to manage how you appear to others. Amish women give this up entirely. No makeup, no jewelry, no hairstyle that differs from the community standard. What remains is the face as it actually is, every day, in front of everyone. That is a specific kind of vulnerability that Kendra's reaction, whatever its theatrical amplification, genuinely captured. For Amish women, that vulnerability has simply always been the baseline. It stops feeling like exposure and starts feeling like freedom. But it takes years to get there. Strangers in the house. Number 7. Suddenly, Amish placed 6 strangers inside Amish homes and filmed what happened. Setting aside the production elements, what it captured accurately is the genuine Amish capacity for hospitality toward people they do not know. Amish women are expected to receive visitors, feed them, house them if needed, and extend the same warmth to a stranger at the door that they would extend to a sibling. This is not simply a personality trait found in particularly warm individuals. It is a community expectation rooted in the same theological framework that governs everything else. The needs of others come before personal comfort, and a home is not a private retreat, but a place of community service. Sarah and Alan did not become hosts on Suddenly Amish because they are unusually open people. They became hosts because opening their home to those who need it is exactly what Amish women and men are raised to do, whether the person arriving is a neighbor in a hard season or 6 strangers from a television network with cameras. The meals kept coming. The door stayed open. The patience held even when the cameras were making everything harder. That part was not scripted. That part was simply who Sarah is and who Amish women are trained from childhood to be. Silence under pressure. Number 8. One of the more subtle things Suddenly Amish showed, almost by accident, was the way Amish women handle conflict and confrontation. When cast members argued, raised voices, or pushed against the household's expectations, the Amish women in the room did not match the energy. They went quiet. They redirected. They absorbed the friction without reflecting it back. Viewers who found this frustrating were actually watching one of the most deeply trained behaviors in Amish women's lives: the expectation that conflict is handled privately, calmly, and without public display. Amish culture places enormous value on Gelassenheit, the principle of yielding and surrender, which in practical terms means an Amish woman is expected to absorb confrontation, bring it to her husband, or to a trusted elder if it requires addressing, and never allow her own emotional reaction to become the center of a situation. This is not passivity. It is a specific, disciplined skill built over years that takes far more self-control than raising a voice ever would. What looked like Sarah quietly stepping back during tense moments was actually one of the most trained and intentional things the cameras captured. Modern viewers watching the show consistently praised Sarah for her composure. They were right to, but it was not a personality trait. It was a lifetime of practice at choosing stillness over reaction every single time. When the community comes, number 9. James's storyline on Suddenly Amish involved his history of being shunned and his attempt to return to the community. The show dramatized this heavily. What it actually depicted, beneath the drama, is one of the truest things about Amish women's lives. The community shows up. When an Amish family faces a crisis, whether it is a man returning in shame, a death, a barn fire, a sick child, or simply a week that has become too hard to manage alone, other women appear. They bring food. They take over chores. They sit in the kitchen and say very little and stay for hours. This mutual aid is not organized through a committee or scheduled through an app. It flows through the informal network of Amish women who pay attention to each other with a consistency and depth that most modern communities have entirely lost. What makes this system work is not generosity alone. It is obligation, accepted willingly, built into the fabric of how every Amish woman understands her role in the community. She does not wait to be asked because waiting to be asked is considered a failure of attention. An Amish woman who notices a neighbor struggling and does nothing has not simply been unhelpful. She has, in the community's quiet understanding, broken something. This expectation runs in both directions. She gives without being asked, and she receives without having to beg. When her own hard week arrives, the same women who watched her from across the road will be at her door before she has fully admitted to herself how much she needs them. What Suddenly Amish showed about this, through Sarah's steady presence and the way the Amish hosts kept showing up for people who were functionally strangers behaving badly, is entirely accurate. An Amish woman does not show up only for the people who deserve it or the situations that are easy. She shows up because showing up is what her faith requires and what her community depends on. The show's producers likely thought they were filming interpersonal drama. What they actually filmed, in the background of every scene involving an Amish woman, was the infrastructure of a community that has decided, collectively, that nobody faces anything alone. That is not scripted. That has never been scripted. It is the most real thing Suddenly Amish accidentally put on television. Suddenly Amish is not a documentary. It was never meant to be one. The dramatic arc, the romantic entanglements, the carefully selected cast members who each brought a specific incompatibility with Amish life, all of that was television doing what television does. But reality shows set inside real communities cannot fully fake the backdrop, and every time Suddenly Amish pointed its cameras at an actual Amish woman doing an actual thing, it accidentally captured something true. The workload before sunrise, the kitchen as the center of a woman's entire world, the clothing that asks her to surrender control over how she appears to others, the quiet authority that runs a household without ever raising its voice, the hospitality extended to strangers without hesitation or condition, the composure held under pressure that took decades of practice to build. What most viewers took from Suddenly Amish was the drama. Who left? Who stayed? Who broke the rules? Which relationships became complicated? What they missed, in the background of almost every scene, was the portrait of a way of life that has been functioning largely unchanged for centuries. Amish women did not need a TLC show to validate what their lives look like. But for the millions of people who watched Suddenly Amish and walked away thinking they understood something about Amish life, these 10 moments are the ones that were actually showing them something real. The rest was Hot Snakes Media doing what Hot Snakes Media does.